is just a simple thing that I built quite recently. Well, actually, I've only added on these last two lamp holders and the last switch box in the past couple of weeks, but I actually built this almost a year ago for an experiment I did last February, I think. Basically a demo of chunky lamp current waveforms, specifically compact fluorescent and especially LED. Then it was originally just these two switch boxes and those four lamp holders. What are now 3, 4, 5, and 6, because I added shortly after I built this lamp holder 1 and lamp holder 2, their associated switch box, and then the past couple of weeks I added lamp holder 7, lamp holder 8, their switch box. And it's quite a useful thing for demonstrating lamps, bulk testing lamps. Basically screw them all in, flip, 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 check to make sure they all light up, off. Assuming they're 120 volts, of course, otherwise they could explode. Or if they're 240 volt lamps, they just will light really dim or flicker if there's something like a fluorescent lamp, where the ballast isn't designed to operate on a potential that low. Or unless they're magnetically ballasted, in which case the light probably may not light at all. But, yeah, it's quite a useful thing. I actually got the idea for this from a demonstration, whatchamacallit, Philips had in one of their older green rubbish lighting pushing videos from about 2009-ish. So it was only starting to talk about things like LED because they were just starting to become common, as opposed to the full-blown, almost plague that they've become nowadays, just because they're being shoved in a whole bunch of applications, many of which they aren't really suitable for. But it was all rant for another day. I've covered that in various videos and videos to come that haven't been filmed yet. But basically that thing consisted of a bunch of individually switched lamp holders in a suitcase, except it was all really fancy and probably, cost hundreds of dollars or euros because it was a European video. It also had a bigger selection of lamp holders, like in addition to medium screw, it also had the European intermediate screw, or it had European intermediate screw lamp holders, GU10, MR16 bipin base lamps, whereas this is much more of a, just for demonstrating GLS and equivalent medium screw mains potential lamps. And of course this also looks much more like something that some guy cobbled together in their garage or dining room tables, in my case, which it was. And of course this is also quite cheap for what it is. This thing you could probably get change for $40 out of the parts, because this was I think paid maybe $1 or $2 for the cable at PT Surplus, which, if you don't know where it is, it's a very useful industrial surplus and salvage store in the Kingston, New York area. Not that far off of Route 9W. If you don't know where that is, I highly recommend it. What was I about to say? Well, a piece of scrap plywood. The lamp holders on the other schmooer from Home Cheapo. That's probably maybe $30 in parts. Well, $30 to $40, and the couple hours labor to build the thing. And it is quite a useful thing. Looks like it was cobbled together, but it looks functional. Looks pretty decent. Christian, again, built this for regular use because I use it a lot for testing lamps now. And I also have a companion thing, which is basically a more prettified version of something that actually featured in one of my really old videos, which then had a really manky piece of plywood because, I just threw it together for that video, and then it kind of stayed like that for over a year. 250 volt ampere isolation transformer, mains card, 3 lamp holders. Again, risk of electrocution. This thing can kill you because exposed mains. Obviously, this thing isn't plugged in, and or live, and 3 1 ohm current, 10 watt current sense resistors. Basically, so that's just 1 volt per ampere output signal, which doesn't really matter on 120 volts. And it also means that you don't require any kind of fancy math, because my current oscilloscope only has 1 math thing. Actually, all my current DSOs only have 1 math thing. Others, like if I can get something like a Yokogawa DLM 4000 series oscilloscope, which is, I think, 4 different math things. I mean, you could compensate for different values of sense resistor, but because one of them things are so bloody common, it doesn't make any sense. Or something like a Teledyne LaCroix HDO 8000, which is, I think, 12 different math channels, but again, those are $14,000 to $25,000 oscilloscopes, not counting all the other schmoo that I need because of the power electronics development work that I'm doing. So yeah. But anyways, especially if you're a lamp collector, these are quite useful things. Just have to remember, especially if you're getting into it. Remember, and even if you haven't, like, I mean, I've been collecting for a good decade now, and almost close to a decade, and I know people have been collecting for longer than I've been alive, and just remember these are for mains only. You stick something else in there, and it could go boom unless you hook this up to something like a Variac, and you set it to a known potential, like if you're testing 48 volt lamps, 75 volt train lamps, etc. And of course also that thing, which is also quite useful, and will probably be featuring in some videos as soon as I can get a decent lab space cleared up. But yeah, these are, quite a simple project. With the parts, you could probably knock one of these out in a couple hours. If you're really working fast, didn't have to make any modifications. Like I did have to grind down the central lip to get these two to fit close together with the initial one. Of course, the subsequent add-ons are just stuck right onto the box, which is what or stuck right onto the backboard. Hence the gaps. I mean, you could probably, if you were, you wouldn't want to rush it just to make sure you're doing it properly, but probably in an hour and change, if you already had all the parts to hand. So yeah, they're useful little thingies. As long as you know what you're doing, because also the reason for this, the isolation transformer is actually pretty important, just because of the ground reference on the oscilloscope, unless you have high pot differential probes, or high potential differential probes, and you also have to be careful with this because, again, 250 volt amperes, and even with the continuous use in the experiment that I was doing, that I most recently used this in, this transformer did get a bit on the toasty side, but it is fairly normal. And also having a 60 watt GLS lamp here, for, 2 inches from the transformer, probably didn't help matters much. But yeah, they're useful little things, just, because it's mains, know what you're doing, blah de blah, this thing can kill you, make sure you only stick this thing with the pokey bits after you finished it, usual safety schmoo.